place to say that, so we didn't.
Oh, no, you did it. I've said it to him privately.
That's honestly what I felt like. So.
All right, welcome everyone. It is February 24th, 2026. This is the 9 a.m. board briefing for the county commissioners. Please let the record reflect. In the conference room, we have Commissioners French and Kearns, and online we are joined by Commissioner Waldriff. And we are going to lead off today with Mike Burgess, the county lobbyist, and tell us what's happening in Olympia, Mike.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. So just like I said, I always start with kind of a general update of where we're at. Today is day 44 of 60. Tomorrow is the policy committee cutoff of the opposite house. So Senate bills have to be out of the House committee and vice versa. And when we had talked last week, Tuesday was the floor cutoff. So there's actually been a handful of bills that have died or issues that did move through the process that we talked about last week. So we'll wrap up with those. But our next cutoff will be on March 2nd. So that's the fiscal committee cutoff for opposite house bills. But all the while, operating budgets, or all three budgets for that matter, have been released. The hearings were yesterday in both the House and Senate fiscal committees on the operating budget. And just looking at them, there's clearly a lot to digest. I talked to one of my colleagues that specializes on the human services side. His comments were that we're in good shape in those budgets. And when I say we, I don't mean just Spokane, talking about the county family in general. But there's obviously a lot of worry that, with a lot of the talk going into session with how bad budget deficits were and those types of things, that there's potential for cuts or pushing costs of services down to you all at the local level. Doesn't look like that has happened, but again, still trying to digest everything that's in the two budgets. A couple specific call outs. The Joya funding, I think I'm saying that word properly, was maintained. So that issue for the time being is safe. And when I say for the time being, it means that obviously these things need to hold in the final budget, but it's good that cuts weren't there in either one to start with. It would be a little strange for all of a sudden a cut to show up, though it does happen, and when negotiations are going on. Also, there was some backfill of the Becca funding that was cut. I know that's an issue that you all as a county have specifically raised, and I've heard you talk about, was raised when we talked to our legislators pre-session. So knowing that there was some backfill of the cuts that had been made there is a positive sign. But again, I'll go through it and get you something more probably next week, have a better digest of everything that was there. But again, on balance, it didn't look like there's anything glaring in terms of something that could be harmful for the county. That's on operating. Moving to the capital budget. The only project we received funding for on our list was the Sobering Center. So that's $733,000 that was in the Senate's capital budget. Was not in the House, but that's okay. That's normal. What it normally happens is, you have the House has a bunch of community projects, the Senate has a bunch of community projects, and they get together and they align those, and they generally leave money to kind of, I guess, use the term buy back each other's projects, meaning buy the projects that are on the respective House or Senate list. So that's a normal course. I'm not concerned that it was not in one budget but was in the other. That happens all the time. But as for the others, the PFAS money was carried forward from what was last year. There was nothing additional. Jeff, you had asked me about that via email a few minutes ago. Did not see that. And then our other capital budget requests were not funded. Not totally surprising, just given a supplemental year and the size of the budget. Some of those were bigger asks that are generally done in a biennial year, meaning next year or would have been last year. So also have some conversations with legislators about the possibility of some of those things happening, but that's just kind of where things are now. On the transportation budget, I've just taken a quick glance. Spokane projects are maintained, but again, I need to go back and cross-check from year to year and check in with some of my colleagues on those as well. But I'll have more for you next week on transportation. But like just wrapping it up then. So on operating, feel like we're in pretty good shape. On the capital, the one project was there that was your priority, and then I'll digest transportation more. Um, Commissioners, do you have anything specific on the budgets? And if I can't answer them now, I will get you an answer.
So on the PFAS funding, you said it was carried forward. Does that mean it didn't get any funding this year, or it was carried forward from last year and it's in the budget this year?
It's the amount last year, Commissioner, was 7.5 million. That money stayed, but they did something in it where it strikes it and then reallocates it. So I need to better understand, but had that money gotten spent? Do we
It's in the
know?
process of being spent.
So that's probably why it was reallocated then if it hasn't been spent, but I need to dig into that and find out. But there is not new money.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, moving down the list then.
Mike,
Oh, yes, Commissioner.
if I may, I'm in DC, working with the National Boards of Health, and Jamie is here from Wasalfo.
Oh, okay.
So we're sitting next to each other. So I read through, she sent out an update that got forwarded to the Board of Health in Spokane. And the good news is, just for folks in the room, since we sent the letter, both the county and the health district made resolutions saying, don't cut our foundational public health dollars. And the good news is, in both the House and Senate budgets, there's zero reduction to foundational public health, which is excellent. The challenge is, if you remember, there was still this shortfall because of an unintended redefinition of vaping. And so we still have a $21 million shortfall for FY27 because of these taxes weren't being collected properly and put into the fund for foundational public health. So that still is an issue to be fixed. And as you know, there's still like 3 bills, or at least 2 of them are still alive on trying to fix the revenue or redefine the cigarette and vape tax issue. So anyway, that's just a quick update for Commissioner Kearns and Commissioner French, that hopefully our resolution was effective, which is great. But we still need to address this other shortfall. So Wasalfo will be working on that. So
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Then moving on to other bills. So Commissioner Kearns, you had specifically asked about the flock legislation last week. And I had mentioned that it had passed the House, or excuse me, passed the Senate bipartisan. And generally that indicates that the bill's in good shape. I was wrong about that. There is still a lot of work I wasn't wrong that it passed bipartisan, but I was wrong that there's still work to do. And in fact, one of your staff members with the sheriff's office testified on that bill, and I didn't see the testimony, but I heard it was very good. And if possible, if I could get a copy of that written testimony, that'd be awesome. If somebody could get that to me. And I think maybe written testimony was submitted, but some colleagues might ask for that. So it's public record. So if somebody could help me get a hold of that, that'd be great. But having said that, the bill is scheduled for exec committee vote today. I haven't looked to see what the striking amendment does, but from at least from law enforcement's perspective, there's still some work to do on that bill. So, Commissioner, apologize that I kind of had partial information last week, but wanted to close the loop on that and let you know that there is still a work in progress and a desire by the law enforcement community to still have work done on this bill.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, for sure. The next one is kind of a new one to this year, but we talked about it last year quite a bit, and this was the bill that dealt with the environmental crimes. And it was passed as what's referred to as the 5 o'clock bill. So the last bill out of the Senate last Tuesday. And this is one we talked about, and you might remember Kyle talking about the potential for liability for both the county, but then also some of your workers. And he had some examples from the issues that could happen at the wastewater treatment plant. And it gets into legal things that I don't completely understand, but in terms of knowing and willing, different things like that, when your workers were taking samples, if their samples were out of compliance with, your allowable levels and things like that, that there was a potential for both the county and the employee to be charged or whatnot with a crime. So that bill is certainly controversial. Like I said, it passed the Senate. If it was not bipartisan. It was on a partisan basis, and in fact, a few members of the majority party might have voted with the minority party. I'm not sure about that, but the bill was heard yesterday in the House Environment Committee. So because it moved out of the Senate, it was heard in the House. Had a long hearing yesterday. Members of both business, labor, and then WASAC testified against the bill for some of the reasons that I had talked about. So at this point, just waiting to see if it moves from committee. It has to move from committee by Wednesday, by tomorrow. It has not been scheduled for a committee vote. So that was, again, that's a holdover from last year that you had some opposition to that bill. Just wanted to update you that it did pop out of the Senate, but at this point, not scheduled for a committee vote in the House. And then the rest are on our list, are bills that you're familiar with. I'll just give you quick updates with these. 1859 and 1974 are the two bills that Commissioner Walter brought up a couple of weeks ago that did good things. Both have moved. 1859 has already moved or has a committee vote tomorrow. And the 1974, that land banking issue, has a hearing on the 26th in Ways and Means. The waste to energy bill, I know one of interest to you all, has a committee vote today in the Senate Environment Committee. So that bill is moving along through the process. The tax increment finance bill, the one that injected or has language in it now dealing with the public facilities, has passed committee yesterday. So it is moving. 2489, that's the became kind of known as the camping bill. That would have had some impacts on your local control in terms of dealing with public camping. That bill was alive when we last spoke last Tuesday, but it did not make it off the House floor. So that bill is dead for the remainder of the session. 2515 is the data center bill that includes now the language from the other bill. I forgot the number, but I think it was 2555 or something along those lines. But that language was injected into this bill, and it had a hearing last week, and it is scheduled for exec today in the Senate Ways and Means Committee. That bill is highly controversial, not because of the language that pertains to Spokane County, but there's a number of other issues in that bill dealing with data centers that we talked about last week. But just reminding you that there's multiple things going on in that bill, and there's a piece of that we like, and Commissioner French has been a vocal opponent or proponent of that. Excuse me, not opponent, but proponent. 6026 is the one we've talked about off session, dealing with the commercial development or residential development in commercial zones. It has a committee vote tomorrow, and there's still some work that needs to be done. So I'm coordinating with my other lobbying colleagues that represent local government interests that still have concerns about some of the language there. And Scott had shared with me language, so I appreciate that. And he might be listening here. He let me know, but no new update on that other than it's still moving, but there's work to be done on that bill. And then the last one, 6239, this is the bill that deals with tort liability and arbitration. That bill did move off the Senate floor. It hadn't as of last week when we spoke, but nothing has been scheduled for action in the House yet. But I do believe that this is one of the bills that might not necessarily be subject to cutoff because it does have some fiscal impact to it. And there's some assumptions made with this bill in the Senate's operating budget, meaning it would be subject to negotiating as the House and Senate come together on how they build their budget. That is kind of a quick rundown, but not a lot new happening now. We're just getting to the point in session where the things are funneling down and a lot of focus on the budgets.
We are where we're at.
I'm sorry, what was that, Commissioner?
That we are where we're at. This is the
Yeah.
fast and furious time, right?
It is. Well, it's like hurry up and wait time, but yes.
Hey, Mike, before I walked in a few minutes late, but we did talk about crisis stabilization, I assume.
Yes, it did receive its funding, Commissioner, in the Senate budget, not in the House, but that's normal course for community projects.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Mike?
Okay, yeah, feel free to reach out, commissioners, because you're probably going to hear things about the budget that have trickled out.
Just one
and so-
second. Josh
yeah.
does have another comment.
Mike, the last bill you touched on, the 6239, that is one we received an email last week. I think it was late on Tuesday to the county risk pools.
Mhm.
Risk pool wants us to sign a letter of support. Any concern with us doing that?
No, not at all. I mean,
Okay.
there's potential cost savings with liability. I mean, I'm getting out on my skis on that one, not being an attorney and understanding the interplay of that. But the county risk pool obviously would have opinions about that. But I don't see a downside, Commissioner, to you signing on to that.
Commissioner Waldron?
Oh, I forgot to ask this earlier when you were talking about what made it into the budgets. What about the ESIT funding, the early infant support funding for organizations like Joya? We sent a
It
letter of
remained.
support for that.
It
Okay.
was held, meaning it did not receive cuts.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, thank you very much for all the update, Mike, and we'll see
Sure.
you next week.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. Have a good day.
Okay, bye.
Commissioner CUNY,
Yes,
Chair, I'm going to jump off now because I have a meeting, but I'll try and come back on later.
okay, sounds great.
Thank you.
Okay, enjoy back there. Okay, so then that's gonna take us to Dr. Zing. Which I saw in the news that the news is already reporting that you're gonna be talking to us today.
Yeah, that's funny. Yes, here I am. Commissioner Jordan had inquired earlier this month about the overdose trends. And so I thought it would be a good time to come before you and give you a preview. Next slide. I just want to give the caveat or the disclaimer here that this data is still provisional. I put this together a couple of weeks ago before I went out of town. At that time, we had about 20 or so cases that were still pending. As of today, we still have about 15 still pending. So, and we're still cleaning up the data. But I think the trends will still hold. So I thought it was a good time to just give you a little preview here, but with the caveat that the exact numbers will be revised a little bit as we go forward. And there's some gaps in the data from November to December, and I know that's a time period of a lot of interest. We'll get to that in a minute here, but I can come before you in another couple of, hopefully within a few weeks, and give you some more updated numbers if things do change. So that said, though, next slide, let's get into what we have so far. So as of February 3rd, we had 344 total drug-involved fatalities. And the vast majority of those, as you'll see in the blue section here, were accidental deaths. We did have 14 suicides in that set and one undetermined case in which there just wasn't enough information to determine whether it was accidental or an intentional overdose. And I do just want to mention briefly here that of the suicides, 4 of those involved illicit drugs. So 4 involved fentanyl, and then 2 of the fentanyl involved also involved cocaine. So we're seeing a little bit of creep or drift of illicit drugs into what has traditionally been a population that has used prescription medications as a suicide modality. There's no trend really here yet, just something of interest to note. The next slide. I'm going to focus then for the rest of this talk on the accidental overdoses, since those are the vast majority of what we have dealt with in the last year. And I want to first highlight that for the first time in several years, we're seeing the curve flatten. So you can see that it's been this steady upward trajectory for several years now. And then from 2024 to 2025, we saw that curve flattened. So very exciting. As at the time of on February 3rd, we had 329 accidental overdose deaths in 2025 versus 333 in 2024. Again, it's not a huge difference numbers wise, but we are plateauing. And it's very hopeful, but I do want to point out, of course, that we're plateauing at still a very high number. Next slide. Among these accidental overdose deaths, 73% of them involved mixed drug overdoses, most commonly fentanyl and methamphetamine. Where there was only one drug involved, the most common was fentanyl alone, and then that was followed closely by methamphetamine alone for the other single drug overdoses. You can see here the kind of pictorial depiction of the most common drugs involved. Total number is in blue. I want to bring your attention to the area of the asterisks. Again, the exact numbers may change, but you can see that the orange line, which is fentanyl, is at least flat or trending downward. The gray or silver line is, though, methamphetamine, and that is still steadily climbing, those the overdoses involving methamphetamine. Cocaine has also flattened a little bit, but is not going down. So the stimulant drugs are still on the rise. Next slide.
Real quick.
We're still seeing overdoses across
Dr.
all
Zings,
age groups.
Excuse me, Dr.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh.
Commissioner Jordan has a question.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't. You're in a little tiny box. I can't see if you have.
Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah.
Can you just repeat the top line numbers from 24 and 25 one more time, just so I have that clear?
Yes. So in 2024, we had total numbers. Is your
Yes.
the question? Yeah. So we had 329 accidental overdose deaths in 2025, and we had 333 in 2024. Again, with the caveat that we still have about 15 cases pending, and some of those may yet turn out to be overdoses.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've shied away a little bit from giving the exact numbers just because the numbers might
get
change a little bit.
Thank you.
Sure. So again, we're seeing again overdoses, fatal overdoses across all age groups and life circumstances, as has been the case. The age range last year was from 17 to 75, with some peaks kind of in the middle ranges of life. Next slide. The majority of the overdoses occurred in male decedents and, interestingly, in housed persons. So you can see that on the left-hand side, we have the sex breakdown. So the orange is male. On the right-hand side of that slide is the unhoused status. And of those, the majority are not unhoused, so are housed persons. The persons who are unhoused are depicted in yellow here. And then there was a small number for which we didn't know their status, their housing status. That's in the green. Next slide. So it's always of interest, I think, to
Dr.
look
Zings,
at.
just a second.
Yeah,
Another question.
sure.
Can you go back one slide real quick? Just for my education, can you remind me, for purposes of this report, what counts as unhoused and not? If someone's in a shelter, are they considered housed? Just how does that work?
Right. So if they are living if they're undomiciled, no permanent residence, we count them as unhoused. So if they're in transitional housing or in a homeless shelter, we still count them as unhoused. If they die in the hospital but came to the hospital from an unhoused position, we still count them as unhoused. So the people who we count as housed have a permanent address. We are classifying low income housing as still housing, but again, the transitional, the supported housing, the homeless shelters, we're still counting those persons as unhoused.
Thank you.
And I'll get into a breakdown of how many overdoses are occurring in those locations too. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that
For the
helps.
moment. Okay,
Thanks.
perfect. So on the next slide, you can see the place where overdoses are occurring. This is another, I think, area of interest, that less than 20% of the fatal overdoses are occurring outdoors or in a public restroom, which is sort of another public space. And about 6% of those occurred in a parked motor vehicle, some of those persons were living in their vehicles. We still count them as unhoused though, because it's not a permanent domicile. And it's a quasi-public setting. Another 6% of the fatal overdoses occurred in a homeless shelter or in a transitional housing setting, or in a sober living home or adult family home. But what I want to draw your attention to specifically, and I think this is important for public health messaging too, is that the majority of these deaths are happening in a private residence, either the person's own residence or in the residence of a friend or an acquaintance. And that's in the lighter orange here, and the yellow sections are all kind of the majority of the curve there. Some of them are also occurring in another indoor space, such as a workplace or a place of business. And then on the next slide, if we break out the places of overdose by housed and unhoused persons, we can see a little bit of more clarity on who's overdosing outside, of course. So as you might expect, persons who are housed, the majority of those people, through about 3/4 of them, are overdosing in their own homes. And then amongst the unhoused persons, there's a much higher proportion of people overdosing outdoors. But I think important to note also that about 1/4 of them are overdosing in a private residence, that an acquaintance or a friend, somewhere they might be staying temporarily. So again, just interesting, I think, to note that that not a lot of people are, or that the majority of people are overdosing indoors, or in some kind of residential setting, in a hotel or motel, or in a vehicle. So in other words, a non-public location. And then the next slide is just a heat map. This data we're still cleaning up. We had some unfortunate lapses in data entry as far as zip code of the actual overdose location. So the actual numbers here might change. I think the trends again will hold. And it's what we saw basically last year and in previous years, that the fatal overdoses are concentrated along the sort of Spokane Valley, Spokane Airway Heights corridor, with the highest numbers occurring in those corresponding zip codes. So not a big surprise that the highest kind of density is occurring in the downtown zip codes. Next slide. Like I mentioned, I think there has been a lot of interest in month-over-month numbers last year, how those might have changed with policy changes occurring later in the year. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, though, our pending numbers are from that later part of the year. And so I don't have any good data yet for you on changes that may have occurred in the last quarter of the year. But I will, as we get these other cases signed out, be able to give you some better information on that. So next slide. This is now my summary slide. So basically, just kind of the things I wanted to highlight here, that the drug-related deaths are leveling off, but they're leveling off at still a very high number. Overdoses are still happening across all age groups and life circumstances, although we do have some trends that the majority of fatal overdoses are occurring in males and in housed persons. The majority of deaths are occurring in private residences or in private rooms and shared residences. So as I noted, I think that increases the risk of people overdosing unobserved. That might lead to a delayed response or increased risk of death. The majority of cases we're still seeing are mixed drug overdoses, most often a combination of an opioid and a stimulant, most commonly fentanyl and methamphetamine. And our drug supply is still complex. We don't have a good way of sorting out whether drugs are coming mixed or contaminated, fentanyl with methamphetamine, methamphetamine with fentanyl or cocaine. And so it's complex and unpredictable still. And then lastly, I will be able to give you some more complete numbers, probably hopefully in a few weeks here, as far as we get these other cases finalized. That was a lot of information quickly, I know, but I wonder if any of you have more additional questions for me.
Yeah,
Mr. French.
I knew Dr. Singh.
Yes.
So the first bullet point, drug-related deaths are leveling off, but are still a very high level compared to what? Other like-sized cities, national standards? What are you comparing it to say it's still at a very high level?
Oh, so I'm comparing it to our numbers year over year, actually, within Spokane County. I think, across the country, it's been varying. So in many places, they have seen a plateau and then a rise. Some locations have seen a plateau and then a decrease. It's a little bit difficult to compare jurisdiction to jurisdiction because there's so many local factors that play into this. So when I say high, I mean just compared to 5 years ago here or 10 years ago here, it hasn't dropped to that level that it was even 3 years ago or 5 years ago. It is still high compared to this particular location.
Okay, thank you.
And so I guess my question is, Commissioner Brooks, on, kind of piggybacking off Commissioner French's question, how do we compare to what the state average, what we're seeing across the state, as to what their trend line is, and the national average?
So that can be done. This data that I'm giving you is directly from our database. So I'm ahead of what data we can acquire from the state at this time. As they clean up their data and get it kind of in a more shareable form, I can do that probably about mid-year, though it's going to take until then to be able to compare the numbers that we need to look at to see where we are trending in comparison to the state.
Okay, because it seemed like, correct me if I'm wrong, like last year we were trending still higher than what the state and the national trends were.
Yes, we were trending, well, our trend was still going up, where across the state and nationally, they were seeing numbers going down. But that was, we did have more complete data to look at that time. I'm hearing that the state, some of the counties in Washington are now kind of creeping up a little bit more, but again, their numbers are still incomplete as well. So a lot of it, we're waiting on the state lab to finish some testing. We're waiting on cases to be signed out. We're waiting in some cases for the state data and the national data for the death certificate data to be cleaned up and for that to be published so that we can use it to look at.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Dr. Singh, can I ask? First off, thank you very much for this information. It's always very enlightening to see the trends and where we're headed. On the housed versus unhoused statistics of the demographics, I know the raw number puts that more housed individuals are dying from overdose, but sort of when you look at the proportionality of the overall demographics of the community, why would it not be presented in a way that it disproportionately impacts those that are unhoused? Because when you look at the overall population, I mean, if 1% of the population roughly is unhoused, but they make up 35% of the overdoses. I mean, there definitely seems that it's more disproportionately impacting the unhoused than the housed. So, I mean, any thoughts on that, or is there another way to sort of break out the data, or why is that trend there? Because I do think last year when you presented it, it was pretty close to 50-50, correct?
It was closer. Yes, it did. The numbers were a little bit different last year.
Yes, so
I
was just going to say, so I mean, there has been a substantial shift towards more housed individuals dying of these overdoses, but it still disproportionately is impacting the unhoused. It would seem.
Yes, I don't actually have a denominator for that. I need to do some more work at looking at our actual numbers of unhoused and kind of how that compares to the population in order to do that more advanced analysis. And that's something we are planning for the annual report kind of analysis time. So again, in a few weeks, once we get our numbers finalized and I can take a look at that, I'll have some a better comparison for you on kind of the proportions of population impacted.
Thank you.
Hey, well, thank you very much. We appreciate the data, and I know the community is looking forward to getting the data as well, just to see what's happening. And I mean, at least we're seeing it flatten out instead of continuing to rise. So that's good, but it's still higher than what any of us would like to see it. So
Right.
thank
I
you.
think it is a hopeful sign though. So I think let's end on that positive note that it's
Yes.
better than it has been.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Dr. Zane. Appreciate it. And then we'll look forward to getting the rest of the information once it's finalized.
Great. Okay. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. That's gonna, we're gonna go from that to planning. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, it's sobering to follow Dr. Singh and that news with something that seems relatively trivial by comparison. But we are here today to have you understand the Planning Commission. Next slide, please. Sitting in its role as the Public Benefit Rating Board for the Farm and Ag Conservation Tax Program. This happens once or twice a year. Property owners are petitioning to defer part of their taxes because they're no longer using land for ag purposes, but they're preserving it for either future ag from themselves or future ag if it is sold for those purposes. This program is based in RCW 84.34 and has been used by the county assessor for a number of years. You can see the basics in here. It's intended to provide that cause again for ag lands that are not currently being used in production, but want to be preserved for future use. So it's a valuable part of protecting our ag economy. The overall eligibility for the program is a scoring matrix, but to get to that, the parcels themselves need to be based in active ag or ranch use for relatively larger ones. Smaller parcels need to have a minimum annual value from them, sometimes as low as $100 an acre. And that gets them into the project. We're going to go through 5 of these. We'll do that relatively quickly, and then we'll certainly take any questions. Next slide, please. This is the first project. It is in the eastern central part of Spokane County. And as a reminder, the scoring details are in the staff report and supplementary materials that were in your packet. Next slide, please. This is the aerial of that parcel, partially forested, partially open, 26 acres. It reached a score of 170 in the matrix, which allowed it the maximum relief of 50% deferral of their taxes. Next, please. This parcel in small tract ag in the northwest corner of the county. Next, please. And then you can see the aerial, pretty much open space here. A smaller parcel, 12.5, also reached a score that allowed for the maximum possible deferral. Next, please. A larger acre section or quarter section of land in this case, in the central to southern part of the county. Next, please. This one is mostly forested and scab lands, so it fits within the category of agriculture, even though it doesn't look like it is producing crops. It reached a score of 168, which again provides it a maximum benefit of 50% relief. Next, please. Again, back in the northwest corner of Spokane County, smaller parcel, again, 10 acres. Next, please. Part of generally open space, somewhat forested, that does reach a score that again allows it the maximum relief for the period of time. Next, please. And lastly, a parcel in the same vicinity, about the same size, 11 acres. Next, please. And here you can see it is mostly cleared up against some remaining large lot residential lands and adjacent to some ag lands to the west of it. It reached a score of 170, which does again allow it its maximum relief. So next, please. The Planning Commission heard these, held a public hearing, deliberated, and recommends reclassification of all of them. Once, if you agree, and you will be receiving the planning commission's findings at your afternoon legislative meeting today for consideration on March 3rd. If the board concurs with the planning commission, the property owners will sign the taxation agreement with the assessor's office, and they will have to maintain that relationship with the assessor on an annual basis to demonstrate they are still complying with the program, which among other things requires a noxious weed management program, so the lands can't be just left fallow during this period of time. With that, commissioners, open for questions.
Sounds good. It's gone through the process, so appreciate it.
Thank you, commissioners.
Okay, thank you. Wait, Dawn. Go ahead and come in, Dawn.
My group.
I gotta, everyone else come in. Love it.
You not lost right where you should. I guess, no, I lost the rest of them, so, well, good morning, everybody. I'm here along with, are we ready to go? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm here along with Lieutenant Darren Lehman and Christy Ray, our mental health manager, to brief you on a DSHS pilot program that was offered to us. Darren's gonna take it away.
Yeah, good morning. For about the last 2 years, DSHS has been discussions with our mental health department and looking to pilot a program, a clinical interventionist or specialist program. They initiated one in SCORE at that time when we went over February of 2024, took a look at it. And it was a pilot with that facility at the time also. And we just want to see how it worked for their facility, how it integrated with their operations. And they, at that time, they were really invested in SCORE, but again, were expressing interest in coming to Spokane, and mainly because they had, we had the population, the target population, they were felonies and also misdemeanors, where SCORE is a misdemeanor jail. So it was a rough time because we were going through a medical contract and trying to integrate a pilot program that would have to supplement your medical program was tough. So we want to get that done. So we stayed in contact with them. And now that we've got that medical contract settled, we've reinitiated talks with them. And so they are still focused on Spokane on implementing this program. We are the only state or the only county in Washington that they're looking at to initiate this program with, again, mainly because of the population. Next slide, please. Program is led by the Behavioral Health and Rehabilitation Administration through DSHS. It's going to provide enhanced behavioral health services to True Blood class members that would be currently in custody within our jail. It's a legislatively approved funding, and it's going to provide needed services to our population to include medication management, aftercare, counseling, connection to community providers, and then coping skills. The way this is structured is a no cost to the county. The program being funded through True Blood would essentially, they're trying to target those people that would need competency restoration, have orders around that, and why they're in our custody, try to stabilize them, hopefully as part of it, maybe even keep them out of Eastern State and shortened time frames, either why they're at Eastern State or why they're in our custody. And again, it doesn't come in and take over any mental health services or medical services. It supplements what we currently offer through enhanced care. Next slide, please. Specifically, what they're looking to offer us are positions embedded within the jail, kind of on two fronts. One, DSHS supplied positions, and then one's supplied by the county, though they would actually reimburse us for any cost for the requirements they would want as what they would require the county to provide. So the contract includes 2 psychology associates, 1 psych advanced registered nurse practitioner, one administrative assistant, one clinical intervention specialist. And then on the county side, they are requesting one sergeant and one lieutenant to be part of the program, again, funded by the state. Right?
Good question.
Yes.
Would the sergeant and the lieutenant be new positions? That those would then be backfilled with new hires, or just help me understand that, given.
The idea would be to
hiring
promote
challenges.
for those two positions and then separate, so like currently Lieutenant Lehman has medical as well as mental health and maintenance and a lot of other functions, is to separate those out. So that lieutenant could just take care of medical and mental health services.
So it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's how the structure we saw at SCORE too, they have that similar positions attributed to it. And the understanding from the state is they want to make sure this program is successful as it can be, and they want those full-time positions attributed to that. So there are no obstacles to that part of it. And to the point of they're even willing to fund it to make sure they have that full-time allotment.
So which is great, but what happens, this pilot project, so what happens if it's not continued?
And there's contract language, there would be demotions and they would go back to their positions prior to the promotions if the funding went away.
Okay, so through the unions and HR and all that, that's all.
Yep, the contracts allow for it.
Looking at
We've
Ashley.
had those things in the past, they have happened, we've had to promote, we've had to demote people.
Okay.
So.
And I think if you
Wanted to make
potentially,
sure.
yeah, and if potentially promoted from that, you take that promotion without understanding this is purely as the pilot program is here, and if it were to go away, you have the potential to revert back to your original position.
And then, so like the ones offered through the state, so like the two psychology associates, they're at state and just come like, I mean, so you would just call them on as need basis.
So they're full-time positions that would actually be embedded within the jail. They're just contract positions. So should the funding go away, then it would be DS responsibility to put them to some other program or something else. So what the model is to, like in SCORE, we were all in the same office, all in one team, travel throughout the jail together as a team, as we're seeing inmates and providing services. So they would be there 40 hours a week.
And then this is like 5 additional people. So, because I mean, your staff is 7. Okay, so I was thinking it was like 6 or 7. So I mean, we basically just be doubling our mental health staff.
I assume there's no kind of commitment in the contract to permanent funding by the county if the state funding goes away.
We've asked those questions too and got verbal agreements on it. We just got the contract Friday, which was forwarded. It's with legal now to ensure that it captures that in there too. And right now this is set, they've got a pretty tight timeline. Set to start July 1st of this year, in line with their budget year, and go through June of 28.
Yeah. Okay.
And we have a meeting scheduled for March the 2nd to flesh out all the details on it and meet with the state. So we'll probably have a lot more information on that, and
Absolutely.
this team is going to be there as well. So, and I have spoke to Justin Johnson, and he's made himself available for any information that you want on the program.
As I discussed earlier, this is really intended to serve the true blood class members. Those ones who have been ordered to undergo forensic evaluation or competency restoration. They also have a provision in there that they understand that not everybody will fall under that, but under mutual agreement of the county and DSHS, there are other members that may have mental health needs that they can also serve under this program. We did a kind of a survey or a look at our population for 2025. You see 87% of our population was identified for needing reentry services. And that's a part of this too. That's not just their time while in custody. It's reintegrating them back into the community. So they're not coming back into jail, and they're very heavy on that under this program. Next slide, please.
How are you going to measure the results?
Under this program, usually, everybody knows that under grants, they can be very administrative heavy. The state provides that also, because not only do they want to provide that to us, they want to be able to provide that to the state to show the need and the success of the program. Or obstacles to it, so they are going to provide it under this grant.
As long as they're getting captured.
Yes, yep. And in the contract, I did read where they provide that, I think on a regular basis to the county, so we know if it's beneficial to us or not.
And the program offered at SCORE, they had a data analysis that was specifically for this program, because like Lieutenant Lyman was saying, they had reports and data that they had report back to legislation about the outcome, success, barriers, things like that. So they're very interested in our population.
And our team could help you there. Diane, my question.
Okay.
I mean, if we need to.
Sure.
Example.
To use that data to make it useful for us. And when we,
I may have you join at the tables just so people on the Zoom can see you.
some of the iteration of this program or part of the program, it was a result of SCORE. Again, they did some things differently at SCORE, so that even the positions, they had those, I think, SCORE had hired a lot of those, or they contracted them through their current medical company. And they found that there was obstacles to care doing it that way. So in meeting with them and learning from some of their challenges at that facility, that's how they came to, this presentation here and how they believe it would be best for our community and for the population.
And are there any other facilities that are doing this?
Right now, they're only looking at Spokane, and they've been kind of holding off, knowing the position Spokane was in, and waiting for this day to happen that we can present this to our commissioners. Hopefully, something that we will get approval and move forward with. If not, they'll probably start looking at other counties, but right now the program is really kind of targeted on Spokane County. And then just kind of the outcomes, again, we covered some of these, but it's gonna expand, our mental health care to some of our vulnerable population. It addresses behavioral health needs during incarcerations. Big thing is decompensation. We don't want to see that while they're in custody. We want to stabilize. And hopefully we see some reduced lengths of stay. It's going to streamline some reintegration back into the community, improving the continuity of care and success post-incarceration. And we just want to improve those individual outcomes, reduce the strain. We all know the system's strained, but this is another one that comes at low cost to the county, be able to bring in and hopefully ease some of that and have a positive impact to our community and public safety.
The employees are state employees,
Yes.
okay, that they'll have access and then go through all the normal background checks and everything that we have to do on that part of it, right?
That's correct. They have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we've been through risk management just to make sure everything's tightened up on that end too as well.
We just got the contract this morning, so that's still pending review.
Perfect, yes.
So is this trying to, using True Blood funds to then alleviate the stress on Eastern State Hospital? So we're kind of taking those, instead of them going to Eastern, they're maybe staying in our facility a little bit longer. Is that part of it?
Hi, Bay. This was back in the criminal side. This was my job for many years of trying to work through the mess. So it really depends on the different criminal charge, what happens. One of the key rules in any sort of criminal prosecution, individual has to be competent to stand trial. Different parties raise different questions about that as proceeding goes on while a person's in custody, person's evaluated. And if they're deemed incompetent, usually based on the recommendation of a psychologist, followed by judicial review of that determination, the person has to be restored to competency. What doesn't change is that person generally has to go out to a DSHS facility. There's also certain community-based treatment options that exist. So it says the person does have to get to the hospital. If they're deemed incompetent, they have to go through that treatment. That's not going to change here. There's some different legislative discussions about different things on that, but that's not at question here. What is, quite impactful here with this program and what this really could help accomplish is it takes, a person gets into jail, it takes some time for the criminal prosecution process to kind of ramp up a bit to get to that evaluation process. This is getting some people with the individuals in jail right away to start assessing treatment needs, getting the person treatment quickly, address, highlight some of the issues and needs, bring that attention to the attorneys, courts as needed, and some of those things. So that could help with some individuals, and it varies depending on the given individual in custody. Some you can get them right into treatment, right on medication, get them stabilized right away, reducing the need for them to get into the competency related questions, or maybe get them to the point where by the time they're evaluated, they're stabilized. It can also raise flags earlier and help direct it so that the person can get from the jail to the given DSHS treatment facility quicker. And finally, too, person goes out to treatment at state hospital, or they're in a community-based treatment program and return to the jail. It can help with keeping them on medications, ongoing services, kind of keep that continuity of care to keep the person stabilized and competent throughout the rest of the proceedings there. So that really, that reduces some of the transport needs to and from the hospital. I know from my experience in the criminal prosecution realm, issues of compensation, it could be fluid. And so maintaining consistency helps save everybody significant time, money, resources. It's better for the individual, have that consistency, better for the treatment staff. One of the situations too, especially the most serious charges, your murder charges and similar, is that medication can be administered involuntarily for competency. That's best done with people who can not only provide the medication, but really come in and explain to the court what's going on and have that judicial oversight and review for that process. Having staff that are more designated for that sort of role rather than contract medical staff who've got other responsibilities can help with that process too. So there's a lot of ways that this can work in conjunction with other medical services, mental health department, and the criminal justice system, prosecution, defense, and courts to assist everybody.
So, I mean, it seems like it's going to be really great for the people that need this. And so I'm, we definitely want to support it. I just wonder if one of the, I don't know, unintended or intended consequences by the state is then we're housing people here longer than would normally be at Eastern State Hospital. So it's putting a little bit more pressure on our bed count. And are we getting compensated? Or I'd like to see if we could talk about that in the contract, that if traditionally they would be at Eastern State Hospital, if they're going to be here. And I want them to get the help because I think that is truly better for the individual. But are we going to get compensated then for the bed days?
And the one, and obviously there's more, to go on and discuss with that, but I would note that the way that this is structured, based on what I've reviewed with the contract and the program that's set up, the goal is not to replace or supplement Eastern State Hospital. That would be one of the concerns that would be all across the board. It's not to replace the hospital, it's to help supplement and expedite the treatment to hopefully reduce the need for going to the hospital if possible, and then to avoid having to send somebody back to the hospital. Have to go back and forth between jail, hospital, because that is a very real possibility. This wouldn't be set up to replace the hospital or have those,
No, but I think what they're trying to do is trying to give them the help they need so they don't end up at Eastern.
Yes.
And so, which means that they are ending up in our facility longer, because otherwise they would be at Eastern getting those services. So instead of being at Eastern getting those services, they're in our facility getting the services, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I'm just saying, I think that that's just a little bit of an unintended consequence of potentially. So that's why I just want to be thinking through it, that we may be spending more
bed days
bed
here.
days here than where they would be there.
So
And
my-
again, I think it's better to get them that care and all of that here. I just, since it is a pilot, I think we need to really be thinking and talking about all of that. You know, is it, you know, putting more burden on the county in other ways?
Sure.
So.
Just a question I would have, how long are they staying now, what they're getting transitioned out to Eastern? Like, how long is the queue? So I see this as taking advantage of that queue to get them services.
So some of the data from SCORE kind of, they did have that unintended consequence. There was this population that stayed in custody longer because they avoided going out to Eastern. They avoided the whole 1077 process and got their treatment while they were at SCORE. But then there was this other group that would normally wait in custody longer to get to the hospital. And with this program, they got there much faster. So it kind of ebbed and flowed and balanced the two out. So both of them are, the goal is to get them out there, but there were some that stayed a little bit longer because of that.
About a couple years ago, to get from county jail to Eastern State Hospital, it was upwards of 6 months. Or ridiculous timeframes along those lines. That has changed immensely at this point. Individuals generally, unless you've seen a dramatic change in the last few months on this, it's usually about a week or two. So, or you know, it's a couple weeks. It's pretty quick. We're no longer having the situation that once existed where people were spending months in jail from when they were ordered to the state hospital into Eastern. So in a sense, that has improved immensely since the time of a lot of other issues.
Which is the whole True Blood issue,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
that's why we're here, which, you know, and it is a, you know, a funding source that is, you know, gonna be there, so I mean, so that's the things about it, but it is good to hear that it is much faster than it used to be, and that it's to make progress there, so like I said, I just would want to make sure we're just paying attention to that and could potentially charge for that on a bed day, just, you know, as it's a pilot, again, since it's a pilot and trying to through what we do. So,
We could add it to make sure we're tracking that. And to Christie's point a little bit too, when they did it in the SCORE, it was the misdemeanor jail. Now that we're more in the felony range, you know, with our population, they're spending more time here anyway. So hopefully, you know, you wouldn't be seeing it in that range, because a lot of it can be concurrent. It doesn't necessarily, they're gonna come in and do their portion of it before anything court proceeding wise. It happens concurrently, so hopefully it condenses it, if anything that was. But I'd like to be able to come back to you and go, oh, look, we're seeing, you know, some shorter bed days or time in jail. So.
Can you say more about kind of the target population? I see that maybe up to 87%. Is that the universe of people we're talking about, or is there kind of layers of priority? And then how do you, so I have kind of 3 questions that are related and just looking for a flavor. So kind of more about the target population. How do you see this team kind of coordinating with the work already being done, either in your unit or in pretrial, that type of thing? And the third question has left my brain, so that's.
Yeah, okay, so the 87% was really just a statistic to show the reentry needs and identified, and that's because in the SCORE model, they didn't have a clinical intervention specialist. And when we first started having conversations with DSHS, that wasn't included in their proposal either. It wasn't until recently that they wanted to do that, add that position, because they identified the need of reentry services, that warm handoff in the community. And so that statistic was just to kind of show the reason DSHS added that position is because we have that need. That's a need for them to be able to connect them to community resources to help reduce recidivism. As far as the target population, it's really important that they're embedded in the jail and with our current services, because True Blood is identified as when that 1077 is filed. So you get arrested on day 1, you're not a True Blood person until, let's say, day 22, when that is filed. So your current services are treating that person until that's filed. Now I need to hand this off to that team to kind of take over services. And so it is a give and take every single day. And so target population for them is when that 1077 is filed.
So does that mean that your team that currently is working on behavioral health across the board might have more capacity
Yes,
to
that is the goal.
focus on other issues, that we have kind of a more specialized team and
Yes.
take the lead on. Okay, that helps.
That is the goal.
Okay, and then in terms of, does it have any implications or overlap with like Medicaid waiver conversations at all? Or is it really just kind of bringing in reinforcements to focus on a targeted population?
My assumption until that program is more identified and more put together is more just to help support and make it more robust. I would assume that once 1115 comes in, that there's gonna have to be some care coordination, just like there is right now with current services. Which is also why I think they got ahead of the ball and getting that specialist position for reentry services and for that sort of thing as well. They're very well aware of those programs, yes. Mhm.
Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? On the last side there, that's what I had it left open to, and basically, you know, understanding that as, they're looking for a July 1st start date, we're looking for your approval to move forward, with this, you know, going through all the steps we need to with risk management and legal to get it before you for the ultimate goal to enter a contract with.
Seems like a really good thing. So I just want to make sure in the contract, we can, you know, try to track, you know, the days.
Lengthy stays,
Yes.
yeah, lengthy stays. We used to have extremely lengthy stays for people waiting for the 1077 evaluations, like I said, 6 months, 9 months. So that's improved greatly, so we don't want to go back that way, so.
No, and we just want to make sure that, you know, because it may be better to treat them here in our facility than have them go out to Eastern. You know, which is what I'm wanting to make sure is like, if that determination is made, then the state's helping pay for the nights.
Sure.
Instead of them being Eastern.
And just quick, don't want to keep it being very long, but we're 3 weeks into the medical switchover with our new medical provider, Medico, and very happy so far for somebody that was here at the transition 8+ years ago. This has gone not without teething problems, but much better than it did before. And so we are full staffing things. We pretty much went throughout a weekend. We transitioned on a Saturday night to Sunday. I'm sure that was a good plan, but next time we'll rethink the day. But other than that, 3 weeks in, and we're very happy with our doctor. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
We can have you move down. I'm gonna go all the way down here.
I have a couple more joining me.
There's a spot on either side.
Commissioners, as you can see on your agenda, it's the online accessibility compliance requirement that was handed down by the Department of Justice late last year. And we have a presentation for you. Our webmaster has done a tremendous amount of work on this. Sharissa has also worked with IT. So we have Kirsten Frost Anderson. We also have Nathan Gwynn here. So I'm going to hand it over to Sharissa.
Yes, hi. So we're here today to talk about our online accessibility compliance. This takes place in April of this year. We don't have a presentation in the packet, but I do have one prepared on the screen as well. But basically, we need to be in compliance with WCAG 2.1. This is an international web content accessibility guideline. It is required by the DOJ, and our website and all of its components do need to be in compliance, or at least be showing compliance starting in April. This is also important just because we have a very large community, over 500,000 residents. That's roughly 15 to 20% have access to, or need access to our site that have a disability. Disabilities that this addresses are going to be anything from vision, hearing, motor, cognitive. These disabilities require assistive tools, things like screen readers, keyboard navigation, speech tools. And our website is broken down into 3 different parts. So we have our website, the main that you interact with the most. So our web pages, things that our web editors have access to. This is content, images. The second part is apps. These are homegrown apps that our IT department has, as well as third-party apps that we interact with. And the third component, the main reason we're here today, is to talk about the PDFs. So all PDFs that are available on our public facing site or apps are also compliant with this new guideline. Just some statistics for you. On our website, Civic Plus, we have our document center. In our document center, we have about 18,000 documents. A couple other apps that we have, and I know Kirsten is very familiar with these. She can talk more about them, but all of these apps also have their own database of PDFs that we store that need to be compliant. And totally, this brings all of our web content to about 21.8 million PDFs that need to be compliant. It's a very daunting number. So to make it compliant, it needs to be, they all need to be, meet all of these requirements that are on the screen. So there's 8 different points. These are kind of a more generic checklist, but I think the actual guideline is 70 pages long, but this just wraps all of it up. And to be short on time, I'm just going to skip forward, but we can come back to this to answer any questions. So solutions, if we don't do anything, we are open to litigation. This includes lawsuits, legal ramifications, reputable damage. Our next option is to show that we are at least in progress, basically saying if we have been audited, what are the steps that we're taking in order to meet compliance? As you can see, over 21 million documents, it's going to take us a long time. This is something that's outside of our current staffing bandwidth. So we need to bring in a third party tool. That's where this solution we recommend comes in. This is Doc Access. It has been acquired by Civic Plus, which is our, as you know, our website vendor. It does a lot of these remediations instantaneously. They're about 48 hours. All of their, it basically acts as a viewer. So as you read a PDF, a lot of times it opens in Acrobat or Adobe. This essentially is just going to be its own viewer. So it gives access to folks who have these disabilities. They can toggle whether it needs to be reformatted, the document needs to be reformatted to be compatible with the screen reader, or if it needs to be navigable by a keyboard. This essentially acts as a cloud to hold our documents and then reformat them in a way that is accessible. So it has the instantaneous accessibility, things like you can ask the reader in plain text. So without any sort of government jargon, it will be able to call information from documents. It also automatically takes these documents and makes them mobile optimized, so you can view them correctly on your phone, your tablet, or on the desktop. 24/7 interpreters. It also is powered by Google Translate, so it offers these documents in over 250 languages. And then it has the AI generated comprehensive alt text. So for images, charts, diagrams, you know, when you think about our budget documents that are on our website, anything from charts to maps, those all need to be properly tagged. And this AI generated comprehensive tagging instantly does that. And so that takes a lot of time off of our staff that frankly, we just don't have the capabilities to do. So pricing, because I know that's everybody's next question. This tool comes at a listing price of over $27,000. They have given us a 5% discount on our first full year. But I've asked them to explore the option to prorate it for us. I know we've been in talks with our account manager, and they've been able to negotiate it down to $15,950 to have that now. So we are having to discount this year until our next contract cycle, which begins in October. We're saving about $50,000 to use this tool. That's obviously a lot smaller than a salary, which it would take a whole team. So we are here today to request a one-time approval to purchase this tool to help us become ADA compliant. And if you have any questions, I have Nathan, he's been our counsel, and Kirsten with IT.
So as we move forward, whose budget does this come out of?
That would be something we would have to, yeah, this is a federal mandate. So we're either going to do this or something like it, or probably pay the lawsuit along the way. I do think they've done a good job finding, considering we do have 20 million documents, you know, imagine the staff time. It's not really realistic to even imagine.
Well, one full-time employee strictly dedicated to this.
Oh, no, I
would not be able to accomplish it.
So
Get it done in about 50 years.
A lifetime.
we may be in that end process, Bob. So we're gonna have to do it. The question, does it go to IT? Does it go to communications? You know, it is working with all departments. We probably could get it into our overall cost recovery plans. But that is something that we will need to. I would suggest this year probably the first 15,000-16,000. I'm not that concerned, but we do that one. But as we move forward with the annualized contracts, we can look at it, and Tessa and Jason, I can come in with a recommendation there.
Thank you.
So this is something all of the cities in Spokane, they're also doing this.
I don't know about each city specific, they are supposed to be doing this,
Okay.
they're supposed to be adhering to it. This is all government and jurisdictions nationwide.
Well, and it was also made clear to us that failure to comply shows significant progress, could even affect grant applications.
They would use it as a.
Yeah.
As it means to say, oh, well, you're not complying with. So. we're not
I'm just surprised this hasn't gotten more attention. Like I'm not hearing other governments talk about this. I mean, I'm just, everybody's doing it. I'm just surprised I'm not hearing more folks talk about it, but yeah, I'm okay with what you're recommending. Mr. French.
Yeah, I'm okay with the program. What I'm curious, did you say it should be in IT or communications?
Well, I think it could be one of the cost recoveries that pulls from all the different departments. Because everybody has
Kind of our internal.
PDFs loaded up somewhere.
Okay.
Most people use, that's what I want to talk with Tessa about, and just see which model it would fit in best. I think for this first 16,000, we could also plug it into the model. We could do non-departmental for the small one. But going forward, yeah, I think it should be allocated across.
Okay.
So.
I agree. Whose tickler is it gonna be on to make sure we renew it and upgrade it so that we don't fall behind? Is that communications or is that IT?
I think typically IT handles our Civic Plus contract.
Yeah, IT is managing that Civic Plus contract, so it would be, I believe it would be combined with that contract, which is, you know, when we do the renewal or I guess the renewal happens in October, so it would be trued up at that point as far as our next cycle of payment.
It's with the Civic Plus.
Yeah, I agree. IT makes more sense. And they can put it on their tickler file and then it gets, we don't miss it as part of the upgrade.
Can I mean, one of the things, I mean, that you pointed out, if an individual was manually doing this, I mean, just impossible, it's not gonna work. They're utilizing AI tools to do this. While you guys were researching this, did you come across any other things or learn about any other things other jurisdictions are doing where they're utilizing AI to be more efficient, to kind of cut down on manual workloads?
We haven't done extensive research across the various jurisdictions, but Civic Plus has informed us that they have a number of customers using this doc access tool. And it was, our account manager let me know that there are jurisdictions that they work with that are just choosing to do nothing. They're just choosing to do nothing, but there are all other jurisdictions that they'll hire a consultant to try to help advise on how to make their sites compliant. And ultimately, it comes back down to purchasing a software tool to do it for them.
Does
With the added cost of the consultant.
Yes.
Does Civic Plus have other AI tools that do other things, not specifically this, but do they have other software packages that are things that would work for us?
They have a couple. One you've already approved is Audio Eye. So that's one that we put in front of you back in October. And that helps remediate using AI on our front. So anything public facing on the SpokaneCounty.gov. So anyone who interacts with your standard pages. That one also has a leaning towards accessibility as well. So that brings all of those pages into compliance. They have another one coming up. We haven't had a chance to explore it, I think, here for us, but I know that they have an exciting new AI tool that they are incorporating. Not quite sure the details on that, but we'll look into that.
Okay.
We are thankful for AI. Because doing this manually would be impossible.
Well, thank you, I think. You know, everyone had not, so it's like, yeah.
Well, I really want to, as this was unpacked and the sheer volume of documents became apparent, and it was like, holy cats, how are we going to do this? And I want to thank Kirsten and IT and Nathan for his support as well, and Sharissa, taking it from the cost we're possibly looking at and bringing it down to just under 16,000. We have some wonderful people who have really worked hard on this, and thank you for your support.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Great team to work with. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's gonna take us to miscellaneous and then executive session, so.
I've talked to a lot of folks today. I've heard folks talk to you, or so I'll respectfully want to move forward on this, or should we kick this to a future date?
Like to wait a little bit, so, because I know there's some changes that are being talked about, so like whether it's not wording changes, maybe resolution, timing, all of that, so yes, I would have to delay it.
All right.
Any other miscellaneous items? Bartholomew, I see you stayed.
Yes, I did, just to remind the board that the letter of support for Joya was completed. You signed it. It was sent. Also, the thank you to Senator Murray for directing congressional funding to the Sobering and Recovery Center. That news release went out. Also a news release for Scraps. They had an adoption event specifically for adult dogs. This is in the wake of the parvovirus outbreak. And it was Friday and Saturday. They received some tremendous media coverage, and 11 adult dogs were adopted as a result of their adoption event. Of course, the regional director, Ronnie, he said, well, it was only 11. I'm happy it's 11, but I wish it was more. And it's like, so we'll do it again. But that went very well. And I also want to remind the commissioners that you have a proclamation at your 2:00 meeting for National Sportsmanship Day. And Mr. Champlin from the Sports Hub will be here to accept that proclamation.
Excited about that.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you.
I will say I've seen a ton of media coverage. I think we have a lot of local athletes and teams that are going to state. Right now, I don't know if they've all competed yet, but I mean, I'll do some digging and see if any of our local Spokane County students or teams won at state or something, and maybe we can do proclamations in the coming weeks and months. So.
Did you see the story I had yesterday about the Central Valley Cheer Squad? They placed in nationals, but they were unable to make the trip.
Because didn't have the money.
That was U High, right?
You high out.
Was that U High? Okay. Okay.
So,
But I think the same article that I think said that, yeah, how they weren't able to go, but I think Ferris and Meade did
Two
go.
other schools did.
So, I mean, we've got a lot of very competitive cheer teams. So yeah, I mean, we would need to look in and recognize them for their achievements, so.
all right. Any questions for the communications office? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other miscellaneous before we go to our executive sessions?
We have 3 executive sessions today, estimated to run about an hour. They are all pending and potential litigation. There's no action anticipated at the end. The first one is 10 minutes. Matt Folsom, Jeff McMorris, Devin Kurta, Ashley Cloud, and Tim Dunavant. Potentially Vicky Dalton, but I think she's out for a family issue today. Second one, pending and potential litigation. Matt Folsom, Jeff McMorris, Devin Kurta, Kyle Tuig, and Ben Bradabo. Again, no action. And then finally, pending and potential litigation, Matt Folsom, Devin Kurta, Jeff McMorris. No action.
How long on the 2 and 3?
20 minutes for a total of 60.
None of those were mine.
The last one is yours.
Oh, okay. Never mind. You made the list. Thank you.
So we have it 11:30. Yes, Chrissy says yes. Yes.
Gina says you have an 11:30.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
That's exactly 1 hour from
I know.
now. So if Matt's correct
No
on
pressure.
his timing.
We will stay on schedule.
So yes, so we are going to executive session for those 3 items for 60 minutes. At the end of this 60 minutes, no action will be taken and we'll adjourn for the morning. So thank you all very much. See you at the 2 o'clock. See.
I joined back up, so I just wanted to let you know in case you didn't see it.
So perfect, Amber, we're gonna go into executive session, so you'll be in it.
Yes, sorry, I've been on for a while. I heard Sharissa's presentation. Nice job, Sharissa. But just want to let you know I'm here.
Just a minute. Whoops. Guys, have a little bit of an issue. I'm actually on the phone with an attorney